What's up, guys? It's Crash. Sorry for the delay in content over the last week. My daughter was born Monday morning at like 4 a.m. and we had to stay in the hospital a little while to get stuff sorted out, but we're good. Everybody's home. Everybody's healthy. That's the main thing. And I really appreciate the well wishes. We got to get back to talking about FPS games. And I have a really cool video for you guys today because the development of this game has insane expectations and implications on the FPS genre, as well as I just feel like overall the stakes of this game, like how it's going to turn out, are incredibly high. And it's not necessarily the what, which is the game Transience, it's the who. This game is being made by the YouTuber BigFry. And if you guys are familiar with BigFry, you know that he's made his mark on the YouTube game and on, the FPS genre in whole, calling out asset flips, Steam like scams, like pump and dump kind of games where they just put some assets together, sell it, take the money and run. And he was fed up with it and is now taking his stab at making his own game. But if you think about all the games, all the bad games that he's called out, told people about, scams that he's warned people about, there's just an incredible amount of scrutiny on this game. Can you guys imagine if this game comes out with some hiccups, with some trouble, the kind of eyes and the kind of internet trolls that are just going to absolutely berate this thing based on what BigFry has done with his content and calling out other games that have done a poor job and have taken people's money and left them kind of holding the bag. So you guys can see why this is pretty wild, right? And the other thing that's very interesting about this game is just that a YouTuber is making a game, right? It's not just, big giant companies doing this thing. It's not, kind of weird indie studios that we haven't heard of making games that are kind of, odd, or like, Fantastic is back making another game from the day before. Like, it's nothing shady like that. It's just really cool to see someone who has played games, who has covered games, who has talked about games for a really long time, knows what it takes to make a good one, stepping up to the plate. There are tools available now through the Unreal Engine where people can make games now, and it's just a really exciting thing to see. And we got devlog 6 with this game. I want to react to it and talk about it just a little bit because there's some concerns I have. Full disclosure here, I consider BigFry a friend of mine. He's been incredibly kind to me, asking him questions about YouTube as well as coming on our podcast, The Scope, that we do Monday nights. He's been incredibly awesome with his time, so I'll give you guys that caveat. But I want this thing to succeed, and since he has started, I've had some concerns about it, right? Like, making a game is not easy, okay? And I have a ton of concerns about it, but what's really cool about this devlog that I want to show you guys, a lot of those were squashed with this devlog because they are focusing on a lot of things that trip up other games, right? So he's covered these things, he's seen these things go downhill, and he's able to learn from that, and they're checking this stuff at the door. So it's really cool. I want to talk to you guys about it. If you haven't seen the game, it's going to be a single player game, which, right, that takes away cheating. It's on Unreal Engine 4, which is traditionally a little bit more optimized and easy to work with at this point. Unreal Engine 5 is not, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, not completely 100% fleshed out and is as easy to work with as Unreal Engine 4. And it's being made as a story-driven game, kind of linear. But why that is cool is taking it back old school, right? This is not going to be a multiplayer early access game, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's a whole nother can of worms on how early access works. This is going to be a game that launches, you buy it, it's yours, you play it, right? I'm excited to have another game to play that is just an upfront business transaction, right? Some of those games are pretty cool, like this, the story games we've been seeing the success with, like Elden Ring and things like that, where, you pay the money, you get the game, and everybody's happy, right? So that's going to be pretty cool. We don't have to wait a long time after it launches for the game to be complete. That's going to be a breath of fresh air. And basically, if you guys can see it behind me, it's got its own unique look as well. It's like cell shaded, but the lighting is more realistic. So when you think like cell shaded, I'm talking about that kind of comic book look with the thick outlines. And then this one has like better, more realistic lighting and more realistic texture. So it kind of, instead of looking cartoony a little bit like Borderlands, it's like cell shaded, but realistic. So it's got a really cool vibe to it. This actually takes place, I believe, in 2056 in New Houston. So in the future, in Houston, Texas, where companies and corporations have taken over even more so than they have now, you start to realize that this timeline is like, kind of believable. But you have a super high-tech suit. You're an accountant, right? And the accountants have a little bit more of a deeper meaning when you're talking about the giant corporations that run the world at this point in the future. And you're more of an operator. So how they balance the books can be a little bit, let's say, nefarious, and you have to kind of take stuff out. But it sounds like, based on what I can tell from the Steam page, which you guys should go check out and wishlist if you're interested in following along, is that you are burned It sounds like you're burned. It sounds like you're on the red list and the company that you work for is kind of after you. That's kind of the gist that I get, but it's more of a tactical stealth action. It's kind of got some Max Payne style grittiness to it, some noir, like futuristic cyberpunky noir stuff to it. And it's really cool to have, you know, just a really interesting, new, unique feel to the game. It's very, very immersive looking. And what you can see behind me is some of the most recent gameplay. So when you have this stuff, and you have a YouTuber that's gonna have all eyes on him, right? All the trolls are gonna be ready to dog on this thing. There's some things that you have to figure out. When I think of a newer studio, and I can say studio now because during this devlog, he revealed that they got an investor. They're now Resurgent Studios, and they're going to be able to push forward. And fingers crossed, if this game does well, they'll be able to make more ones. And I think this is great for the industry, guys. The more people that we have making games, the more people that are there to be able to innovate, to come up with new stuff, it's just a win-win for everybody. If we still have, you know, our AAA experiences, and then we have some kind of AA type experience, and then we have these indie studios, even YouTubers making games, more chances to be good one. It's always better, in my opinion. So when I think about this, I worry about cheaters. That's kind of nipped in the bud with it being single player, right? It's going to be a story that we get to play through these levels, and don't let that hurt you just a little bit. From what I understand, the levels are going to be able to be played in different ways. You can kind of go in guns blazing, or you can kind of, it sounds like it's a little bit more meant to be played stealthy. You got to look out for motion sensors. You can take down people quietly, and we're going to get into the AI a little bit later. That's something I'm worried about. AI is always really tough for any game. These sounds like they're doing AI for the first time, so we need to talk about that. That's something we got to worry about, as well as like optimization and stuff. That's where Unreal Engine 4 comes in. And I like all of these decisions because we're not being too ambitious with this first game. And when you hear him talk about it in the devlog, which I fully suggest you guys check out, I'll leave a link in the description as well as the link to wishlist the game. You start to hear that in his voice, he's seen this stuff go wrong and they're trying to address it right away. You know what I mean? They're not being too ambitious. We see games all the time, man, and bless their heart, right? They're just trying to make an awesome game. Their vision's crazy, but the execution doesn't come together because they're being way too ambitious. So let's take a look at some of the concerns I have that were addressed in this devlog. What I went ahead and did is I brought some clips out that I thought were the high points of the devlog, and we're going to talk about them. So here are some clips from the devlog that I thought were really interesting. And some of these things are just stuff you don't think about when you go to make a game, right? So as the game started, he shows off a really cool new ballistic system. So there's actual ballistic travel. There's guns that have actual projectiles that come out. You guys can see the ricochet off of the dot. It's really cool. There's tracers, so you can kind of see where bullets are coming from, and that's really cool too. There's some extra stuff with gunplay with penetration now. You can be wall banged. You guys can see in that one, you can see the bullets, you know, kind of going through and then ricocheting off. So before, in the last devlog and everything like that, it was kind of a combination of hit scans and they were kind of trying to simulate stuff. However, now we have actual projectiles in the game. This is something that's come from them being able to have a couple full-time people now when they've formed the studio. So we're going to start to see improvements like that. Again, you guys can see a up close look at like the cell shaded plus the realistic textures is really a cool look that I do appreciate. And then we get into AI. And guys, when you're talking about a single player game, when you're talking about an FPS shooter, I cannot stress the importance of AI. You guys know this. We've seen it before. Every single game has AI, and they all have struggles and they all have things they need to work on. So this is one of the biggest things that I was happy to see BigFry talk about. So he's showing how they work. This is one of the sensors that you guys can disable if it detects you. And he basically talks about how the AI operate, how they take into account how many teammates they have left, if they know where you're at or not. They look for you, how much health they have, and all this stuff about whether they pursue or whether they fall back and alert others to do that. So he talked a ton about AI, and in everything we've seen so far, it looks really good. But this is definitely something to keep an eye on when it comes to the game. And this was super, super, super cool. I took this out of the devlog. There's a behavior tree for the AI, and it talks about everything. You guys can see a screenshot. I've never seen a behind the scenes look at an AI before, like in video games. It's always been a huge mystery to me. So being able to see this, to like when to play voice line, to where to move to wait, to clear task group alert. So like there's a group alert where everybody can be alert, reset alertness, a conditional loop that goes and searches around and all that stuff. You guys can see everything that's going on here. Again, patrol point, what job to do, time since last seen, like all these factors are in here in the low right, you guys can see. And I just thought this was really cool to see. And it kind of puts one of my concerns, which is AI, at ease just a little bit. He said in the devlog that they're pretty new to this, but they're really making complicated decision trees and they understand how important it is. Again, coming from BigFry's experience. That's why you guys can see the development of this game is really, really unique. And I really, really am happy to see this. And shout out to BigFry. Like, this is honestly, like, it's not pretty, right? But this was like one of my favorite things in the whole thing, because this has to be right. And it was really cool to take a sneak peek behind the curtains. And this is something also that I didn't even think about being really cool. They're going to be adding like workers. They're still hostile towards you, but they're not armed. So when you're going around these different places, pulling off these different missions, you're going to come across some like civilian workers who are hostile that you have to deal with, right? So if you let them go, they're going to be able to go back and tell the armed guards that you're here and to come get you. So if they run away, you got a problem, you got to decide what to do. And they're working on potentially, he said, and I think this will be the perfect way to do it, is like in Ready or Not, you know, when you take down somebody, when you have them held at gunpoint, then you can like zip tie them and leave them. I think that'd be really cool if, as you're moving through the map, this is kind of a different tertiary thing that you have to deal with and kind of incapacitate or neutralize. Let's say neutralize these people before they run back and tell somebody else that you're there. So I thought that was pretty cool to see. You can kind of see a threat meter at which direction like they're looking at you from. So I thought that was pretty cool, and another layer to the game that's really needed, because like you have all these layers to a single player game. That's what's going to build up to make the whole thing, rather than just, you know, you don't want just linear levels with the same looking bad guys and the same looking stuff. So that was another thing. It was really cool to see a diversity of threats and things you have to deal with. More on AI. This one right here is there are light switches, so you can shut off the light switches so the AI can't see as well when you go into a building. But what I thought was really cool, the AI can go investigate that, figure it out, and turn the light switches back on. So we're talking about a little bit more complexity in the AI, a little bit more immersion. So like if you're in I think about like if you're in a level, have to go into a building, you shut the light switch off, you're going through your mission, and then, oh shit, somebody switched it back on. Like, so you have to do I go back out, shut it off, take care of that guy? Do I continue my mission in light now? Replayability, you know, variety of different tasks, different ways to handle stuff is really cool. Now we get into art, and you worry about BigFry's. One of the biggest things he calls out, right, is asset flips. So then you start to think, if he has assets and like trolls go in and find that there's a bunch of assets and things like that, and this is just an asset flip, it's going to be crazy. Like the internet is going to burn down, right, in hate and anger. But what was really cool to see in this art is how much stuff they've did on their own. Now, I have no doubt that there are probably some asset models in the game. Everybody does that. That's what they're there for. They're there to use in the game, build it to your vision, get you like 60% of the way there, and then you build out the rest of the game. In this case, they've made them their own 100% if they're in here. But this is talking about some of the art design. This is like kind of like an underground subway tunnel system heading to, if I remember right from the devlog, this is heading to like a nightclub. So you guys can really see some of the unique art style and things like that. So I was really happy to see that. There really can't be any hate here when you have something that's definitely this unique looking. Now they're working on lighting to kind of make it more dramatic and stuff like that. So the lighting is not finished. This right here is, I believe, the apartment complex. This is kind of the first tutorial mission, and they're talking about things that have been added. Again, you guys can see like the vibe of this place is definitely of its own. This is an electric fence that they've been working on, like the enemy's blocked off. I don't know if you can disable these or not, but if you run into those, it actually bounces you back. You take a little damage and drop your gun. I thought that was really interesting as well. But this is one of the most finished levels, so you guys can see kind of how immersive it is. If you go back and look at like devlog 1 to see how far this thing has come, is really cool. So they've been doing passes on optimization as well as art, adding all the details, making it look, you know, like a 2056 dilapidated kind of, it's just got a really eerie vibe to it about how life could be in 2056. And if things, you know, keep going the way they are, probably not that far off. The other thing that was really cool, I thought, to add even immersion, I know it's kind of silly. I already saw in one of the devlogs you can shoot lights out, but they're working on ways that, you know, you can just shoot stuff around the map and everything breaks apart. So it's silly, but I know that you've done it. I hope I'm not the only one when you're going around in the map and shoot things to see what happens. This is the electric fence that they got working. It also gives you like a quick view. I'll see if I can pause it again if he picks it up. But what's really cool is you can kind of see the stats of the gun. So I think that's really cool. Damage is right there. Still working on rounds per minute. That's pretty fast. and ergo and mags, and there's going to be a bunch of different attachments. There's kind of like a plus system, if I remember right, like Battlefield 2042, where in game you can change all your attachments and stuff like that. So gun customization is there, so you can play the game different ways. But this is a mechanic that they've recently added where you guys can pop through on that. Now this map is being blocked out right now. This one is really cool, and this leads to, again, my uniqueness in the art style that I was concerned about with the game. We have a blocked out Japanese dam, essentially. It's a dam map is what it is. And what's really cool about it is this is one of the only spots that's not in the new Houston that you kind of take part in. In my opinion, I can't remember, man. I think he said this was kind of like one of the later levels that you're going to go through, but it's really cool to see at this step. Like, and then Frosty and another one of their developers actually went to this place that it's after. So now we start to see, hey, we're building maps. You know, it's not just like asset stuffs we're sticking together. They're actually doing on-site research and going to try to capture the vibes of these places. So this is the actual dam in Japan that it's modeled after, and they went there, they did recon, they got video of the place for inspiration, talked about how they were going to lay it out, and then we got concept art of it. So this is where it's going to be. Hopefully in the next devlog we get to see like what it looks like to this. But again, just really cool, futuristic. It's like, it's kind of apocalyptic feeling, but it's not in a true apocalypse because like society is still going, but it's just like kind of the dark path of corporations taking over, and you kind of definitely get that vibe with it. So it's just really cool to see Fry be able to have like the ability to be able to have people go there and check this out and do this right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the art style, and man, I gotta talk about it, dude. One of the Easter eggs is super cool. Friend of the channel, friend of the program, Redbeard Mortis. He's a graphic designer, so shout out to him. He does awesome work. He designed all the billboards and stuff like that around, so you guys will be able to see like some of that art style. And this is it. We'll get into it just a little bit later. There's a really cool example in just a minute. This clip I put in here because the other thing we have to worry about is gunplay, right? Like if it's a single player game is not all about like the PvP and the excitement of that. But if you're in the game, if you're experiencing the story, weapon handling, gunplay cannot get in your way. It has to feel good. It has to let you be something that you don't really think about because you're immersed in the story. And this is a really good clip of gunplay. So you got leaning mechanics. I think the recoil is reasonable. You want it to be, you know, something that takes a little bit of skill to control. You don't want everything just to be point and click laser beams like when you're fighting AI. And again, the AI seems reasonable. They're taking them out, but it's not like one shot headshot 100% of the time. This is where we're talking about some of the billboards. So this is where I have to talk about, guys. This brought a tear to my eye. If you know, you know. Over on my Twitch channel, we do American Truck Simulator streams sometimes, and we talk about cranking hogs, brother, the way of the road, being true hosses and shitting pants on the road, dude. So this is a shout. This is going to be a magazine that's going to be an Easter egg in there. Big Fry showed this off. It brought a huge smile to my face. It was really cool, man. I appreciate it so much. Like, it's an honor just to have this funny shit in the game. It's super cool. And if you guys notice right here, we got a shout out to the podcast this week on the scope. Ran from Russia is still in development. What games from Russia that's been in development for a decade? I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments what you think that could be. But yeah, we got this thing, man. It's so cool, dude. This is just like the kind of stuff we do over on the Twitch stream. Play some community nights with Big Fry and Redbeard and Blackout and those guys playing American Truck Simulator, just cranking hogs on the road, brother. So to see this in the game, it's really cool. I had to show you guys. It brought an absolute smile to my face for the entire day, man. So it's pretty cool. And then we're getting more into art style. Again, this is what I'm trying to show you guys, variety that I picked out of this devlog. This is a new, so in the nightclub mission, these are going to be like the more elite guards. So they kind of put together like, it looks like Daft Punk kind of with armor. So it's like a tuxedo with armor, which I thought was pretty cool. And those should be rigged and ready to show in the next devlog. So just seeing that variety of stuff, maybe they could have like a little bit higher difficulty. So I like the readability of that. If you see somebody in a tux, you know that's like an elite guard, and you kind of better be careful. So I like being able to see that, being able to react to it. And then this is a view of some of the rigging. This is the main character, Eli Reed, I believe is his name, and just talking about some of the rigging and how they're kind of, I believe with like the new funding, it kind of seems like that they're able to go a little bit above and beyond with animations and make stuff look really good. So, dude, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about from the devlog, man. There's so much in here, and this is just a really cool thing to see, right? Like, it's really cool to see a YouTuber just say, hey, I'm gonna do it myself. Like, and to have someone who has called out all this stuff in the past. What I think is really cool is BigFry calls out scams, he calls out asset flips, he calls out, you know, Kickstarters and stuff like that that try to take people's money and give you guys a crappy game, take your money and fade off into the sunset. And what's really cool is for him to say, oh, I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. So I really hope the game comes out well. I hope it comes out, you know, bug free and ready to rock. The story looks really cool. You have to respect everything going on with it so far, and the fact that there has been no Kickstarter, there's been no kind of crowdfunding of any type. It's not going to be early access. All that stuff has just been done. They're making a game. When it's done, you buy it, you get the completed game, you play the story, you get immersed in it, you get your money out of it, and we all move on happy. It's like a business transaction that's good for both parties. Can you believe it? It could happen. It could happen in 2025, guys. That would be pretty cool. But I like to see that, and it's really cool to see BigFry just, you know, kind of tie up the bootstraps and say, hey, we're going to make a game. And shout out to their dev team. They're doing a really good job. He's got a lot of really good people working on it over there, and it's cool to see. So I'm rooting for him. I want to see more of this. I would like dreams, like I'm just talking here, man. One day it'd be so cool to make my own game. I have exactly what I would want to make one day, and in my head, and it'd be so cool to see one day. So if these tools keep getting more and more accessible, and for more people to make games, I think that's great. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, if this is something that you would be checking out, giving you those like Max Payne, Splinter Cell vibes if you'd want to play through this, or if it's something that you're not that interested. Please let me know down below if you made it to the end of the video. I cannot thank you enough. I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you next time.